Kale was lost again. He had memorized 3 different maps of the orbital station, all of which contradicted one another, and now stood staring at a corridor junction that offered 4 choices, none of which were on any of the maps. The overhead signs glowed with neat alien glyphs, curved like artistic noodles, and the translation patch on his collar cheerfully insisted that one arrow pointed to Singing Chamber of Molten Salt. Another arrow promised Recreational Shedding Pool. He wasn't sure which one would get him back to his workshop, but both sounded like places he'd regret showing up at in his grease-stained uniform. He muttered under his breath about stations designed by drunk cartographers and picked a door that looked harmless. The panel slid open with a hiss that echoed like a guilty cough, and he stepped inside before he could reconsider. Steam wrapped around him instantly, warm and scented faintly of something floral mixed with ozone. The sound of voices. Light, melodic, conspiratorial, rose and then fell into dead silence the moment he was noticed. Kale froze. They were everywhere. Tall, graceful figures with sleek hair that caught the light like liquid metal, their eyes bright with colors that didn't exist on Earth, their ears long and tapered like delicate blades of crystal. They stared at him in a tableau of astonishment, half-dressed, mid-conversation, one still balancing a slipper in her hand. The silence stretched until one of them dropped the slipper. It clattered. Kale's brain stalled. He said brilliantly. Wrong, restroom. A chorus of sounds erupted, half laughter, half outrage. One girl snatched a towel and flung it at him like a weapon, another covered her ears as though human stupidity was contagious, while a third leaned forward with eyes narrowing in obvious amusement. "You're not supposed to be here," the silver-haired one said, her voice stern but not angry. Her ears twitched once, the way a cat might flick its tail when debating whether to pounce. "I noticed," Kale muttered, fumbling backward, nearly tripping over the doorframe. His escape was thwarted when the panel hissed shut behind him with a cruel finality, sealing him in. The laughter spread like wildfire among the girls. A few mimicked his stumbling gait, exaggerating his wide human shoulders and stubby ears, earning shrieks of mirth. Kale's face burned hotter than the station's reactor coils. "I swear," he said, throwing his hands up, "I was just following a pipe system, and the signs lied to me. I thought this was storage. Or maintenance. Not this." "Not this," echoed a tall girl with hair like molten copper, her grin wide. "You barge into the halaspa of the resonant choir, and call it this?" Kale groaned. "Halaspa. Of course. Why wouldn't there be a halaspa next to the plasma conduits?" Silverhair stepped closer, studying him as though he were a rare insect who had crawled in by mistake. "Human," she said, the word both identification and accusation. "You are very far from your sector." He gave a helpless shrug. "Directions aren't my strong suit. I once got lost in my own bunk corridor. Took me an hour to find my bed." A ripple of laughter ran through them again. The copper-haired one covered her mouth to hide her grin, but her ears betrayed her, flicking with delight. Silverhair sighed. "You shouldn't be here." "And yet," she tilted her head. "You didn't scream." "Most humans panic when they stumble into something they don't understand." "I panicked," Kale admitted. "Just, quietly. On the inside. My dignity is clinging to life support right now." That earned another round of giggles. One of the younger girls mimicked clutching at her chest, croaking, "Dignity, flatline," as if performing emergency surgery. Before Kale could protest, he was suddenly surrounded. They closed in like curious scientists examining a specimen. Fingers pointed at the stubble on his chin, at his round, boring ears, at the grease stains on his sleeve. "Why are your ears so tiny?" one demanded. "Evolution," Kale said weakly. "Or maybe cosmic laziness." "They're not even useful," another girl insisted. "He can't hear vibrations." "I can hear you mocking me just fine." Laughter again, loud and unrestrained. For a moment the tension dissolved entirely, leaving only the surreal absurdity of the situation. Kale half expected to wake up back in his workshop with a wrench digging into his ribs. Silverhair eventually raised her hand, quieting the others. Her expression softened, though her gaze never lost its sharpness. "We will decide what to do with you," she said, though her tone hinted more at amusement than threat. "For now, you will explain why the station let you wander here." "Gladly," Kale said. "Once I figure it out myself." He spread his arms in surrender. "But please, for the love of all physics, open the door first. Standing in a spa full of half-dressed strangers isn't how I plan to spend my shift." This time even Silverhair cracked a smile. It was small, fleeting, but enough to tell Kale that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't doomed. Not yet. Kale was marched down the corridor like a prisoner, though he noticed his guards were more interested in giggling among themselves than actually restraining him. They flanked him in twos and threes, long ears twitching, robes swishing, whispering things in their melodic tongue. Every so often, one of them would glance at him, suppress a laugh, and then whisper something that made the others snort. Kale caught a word here and there from the translator patch on his collar, phrases like flat-eared, stumbles like gravity hates him, and, once, emergency towel strike. He rubbed his face. "Glad to know my humiliation has become an instant classic." "Classic," repeated the copper-haired one beside him, her voice teasing. "That is good word. You are a classic." "Not the kind I was hoping for," he muttered. They herded him into a chamber that looked far more official. The walls shimmered faintly, covered in symbols that pulsed as if alive. A crystalline table rose from the floor, surrounded by chairs too tall for humans. Kale eyed them warily. "Let me guess, interrogation." The silver-haired leader seated herself at the head of the table. "Inquiry," she corrected. "We want to understand why a human wandered into restricted chambers. It may not be your fault. It may be, the station's." Kale glanced around at the others still stifling laughter. "Yeah, nothing says serious investigation like half the jury choking on giggles." One of the girls leaned close and whispered, "Don't worry. If guilty, we only exile you to the cryo gardens." "Very peaceful." Kale groaned. "That's comforting. Do they have chairs my size there?" Silverhair raised her hand. The room quieted. "Human. Sit." Kale dragged himself onto one of the oversized chairs. His boots dangled uselessly off the edge. The copper-haired girl nearly fell over laughing, slapping her hand on the table. Kale sighed. "Glad to entertain." Silverhair tapped a crystal embedded in the table. The surface flickered, showing a projection of the station's interior pathways. The hologram looked like a tangled nest of threads woven by a spider on hallucinogens. She gestured to a glowing line. "This is your approved zone. Workshops, human quarters, markets. This," she pointed farther out, "is ours. The resonant choir maintains it. Humans are not routed here. Yet you walked directly in." Kale squinted at the hologram. "That's the map. No wonder I'm lost all the time. Who designed this? A drunken maze architect." "It adjusts itself," Silverhair replied. "The station is alive. Its pathways shift, subtly. Not without reason." Kale's stomach sank. "Alive. Great. So I didn't just wander into your spa by accident. The station wanted me there." "That," she said, "is one possibility." The others leaned in, whispering, ears flicking. Kale tried not to notice how intently they watched him, like he was some puzzle piece they hadn't realized was missing. "Look," Kale said, raising his hands, "I fix engines, not destiny. If the station wants me for something, it's in for a disappointment. I can't even fix a coffee dispenser without flooding the floor in caffeine." The copper-haired girl grinned. "Then you will fit perfectly. We also break things when we try to fix them." The room erupted in laughter again. Kale managed a thin smile. At least humiliation was a universal language. Silverhair leaned forward. We will test you. Kale blinked. Test me? What, like a pop quiz? Because I left school years ago and my grades, let's not. Not knowledge, she said. Resonance. Before he could ask, the table pulsed beneath his palms. A low vibration thrummed through him, tickling his bones. The alien girl's ears quivered, attuned to the frequency. Kale yelped as the vibration made his teeth chatter. What the hell is this? They looked fascinated. Silverhair's eyes gleamed. You feel it strongly. I feel like my skeleton's trying to escape. Kale said, gripping the edge of the chair. Is that normal? Because it feels very not normal. Some of the girls dissolved into laughter again. One even imitated his rattling jaw, shaking her head like a bauble doll. Silverhair silenced them with a glance. Interesting. Humans are not usually sensitive to resonance. Yet you are. Kale rubbed his jaw. Lucky me. Guess I'm built like a tuning fork. That may be closer to truth than you know, she murmured. The session dragged on, full of humming crystals and awkward experiments. Kale was made to hold strange rods that vibrated until his arm went numb, stand under a cone that sang notes only the aliens seemed to enjoy, and walk in circles while they recorded how the station lights flickered in response. Every time he stumbled, laughter rippled. He tried to protest but ended up laughing at himself too, because, really, nothing says dignity like being a human maraca. At last, Silverhair ended the inquiry. You will not be punished. For now. Instead, you will accompany us. The station has chosen. We will listen. Kale blinked. Accompany you where? To another spa. Because I'm running out of embarrassing entrances. Copperhair winked. Oh, human. Many embarrassing places left. As they led him out, Kale muttered under his breath, I should have stayed in the workshop. Wrenches don't laugh at you. But despite the mockery, a part of him wondered, why him? Why did the station steer him into their world, and why did these long-eared aliens look at him like he was about to change everything? Kale had expected punishment, maybe exile, maybe being locked in some humming crystal box while the aliens poked at him with their resonance toys. Instead, he was dragged along like the newest member of a club he hadn't applied to. The group of long-eared women moved with purpose through the station's twisting halls, and Kale stumbled after them, muttering about how humans really should invent shoes that doubled as brakes. Everywhere they went, the walls seemed to shift slightly, lights dimming or brightening as though the station itself was aware of their passing. Kale kept trying to convince himself it was a coincidence, but the way the copper-haired girl kept winking at him every time the floor plates glowed beneath his boots made him suspect otherwise. Does the station always do this? He asked, when the wall lights pulsed in rhythm with his footsteps. Not for us, one of them replied, ears twitching in amusement. Great, Kale muttered. So I'm basically a glowstick with legs. Their destination turned out to be a cavernous chamber filled with floating spheres, each one humming faintly, like an orchestra tuning up before a performance. The long-eared women moved among them with effortless grace, adjusting the spheres with their fingertips. The sounds blended into harmonies that shifted the air itself, making Kale's stomach flip. Silverhair gestured at him. Try. Kale eyed the nearest sphere. What, me? Oh, sure. Human klutz meets delicate alien technology. What could possibly go wrong? Try, she repeated. He sighed, stepped forward, and touched the surface of the sphere. It vibrated instantly, sending a pulse up his arm and rattling his teeth again. Kale winced. Yep, still feels like dental surgery. But the sphere responded. Its hum deepened, harmonizing with the others in a way that made several girls' ears flick in surprise. The chamber lights shimmered brighter. Kale yanked his hand back as if burned. See? Copperhair said, grinning. Glow stick. Silverhair's expression was unreadable. The station recognizes you. It does not usually react to outsiders. Recognizes me for what? Kale demanded. Because if this is all leading up to me becoming some kind of interstellar karaoke machine, I'm quitting. The younger girls burst into laughter. One cupped her hands around her mouth and sang in an exaggerated human falsetto, la la la, save the galaxy with song. The others nearly collapsed against the spheres, giggling. Kale threw up his hands. Perfect. I'll be remembered not as a hero, not as an engineer, but as the man who accidentally invented space opera. Still, the experiments continued. He was told to move between spheres, adjust his breathing, even hum along with the tones. Every time, the resonance shifted, like the station was listening through him. His protests grew louder with each test, but so did the aliens' amusement. At one point, he sneezed, and half the spheres erupted in a triumphant chord so loud the floor trembled. The girls covered their ears, shrieking with laughter, while Kale nearly fell over from the echo. Oh no, he groaned. Now my bodily functions are musical. Next time I cough, we'll probably open a wormhole. The laughter doubled. Even Silverhair hid a smile behind her hand before quickly smoothing her expression. When the tests were done, Kale slumped against a railing, exhausted. So what's the verdict? Am I special? Or just allergic to alien acoustics? Silverhair studied him, her eyes sharp. The station has chosen you. You resonate with it in ways even we do not. That is, rare. Chosen for what? Kale asked. Because I didn't sign up for anything. I came here to fix machines, not to become one. Copperhair leaned closer, grinning. Maybe you are machine now. A noisy one. Kale groaned. Wonderful. I always dreamed of being compared to a malfunctioning blender. The mood stayed light, but beneath it Kale sensed something heavier. The way the women glanced at each other when they thought he wasn't looking, the way their laughter dimmed just a little whenever Silverhair spoke of the station's will, it all hinted at truths they weren't sharing. Still, humor carried the moment. Their destination turned out to be a cavernous chamber filled with floating spheres, each one humming faintly, like an orchestra tuning up before a performance. The long-eared women moved among them with effortless grace, adjusting the spheres with their fingertips. The sounds blended into harmonies that shifted the air itself, making Kale's stomach flip. Silverhair gestured at him. Try. Kale eyed the nearest sphere. What, me? Oh, sure. Human klutz meets delicate alien technology. What could possibly go wrong? Try, she repeated. He sighed, stepped forward, and touched the surface of the sphere. It vibrated instantly, sending a pulse up his arm and rattling his teeth again. Kale winced. Yep, still feels like dental surgery. But the sphere responded. Its hum deepened, harmonizing with the others in a way that made several girls' ears flick in surprise. The chamber lights shimmered brighter. Kale yanked his hand back as if burned. See? Copperhair said, grinning. Glow stick. Silverhair's expression was unreadable. The station recognizes you. It does not usually react to outsiders. Recognizes me for what? Kale demanded. Because if this is all leading up to me becoming some kind of interstellar karaoke machine, I'm quitting. The younger girls burst into laughter. One cupped her hands around her mouth and sang in an exaggerated human falsetto, la la la, save the galaxy with song. The others nearly collapsed against the spheres, giggling. Kale threw up his hands. Perfect. I'll be remembered not as a hero, not as an engineer, but as the man who accidentally invented space opera. Still, the experiments continued. He was told to move between spheres, adjust his breathing, even hum along with the tones. Every time, the resonance shifted, like the station was listening through him. His protests grew louder with each test, but so did the alien's amusement. At one point, he sneezed, and half the spheres erupted in a triumphant chord so loud the floor trembled. The girls covered their ears, shrieking with laughter, while Kale nearly fell over from the echo. "Oh no," he groaned. "Now my bodily functions are musical. Next time I cough, we'll probably open a wormhole." The laughter doubled. Even Silverhair hid a smile behind her hand before quickly smoothing her expression. When the tests were done, Kale slumped against a railing, exhausted. "So what's the verdict? Am I special? Or just allergic to alien acoustics?" Silverhair studied him, her eyes sharp. "The station has chosen you. You resonate with it in ways even we do not. That is, rare." "Chosen for what?" Kale asked. "Because I didn't sign up for anything. I came here to fix machines, not to become one." Copperhair leaned closer, grinning. "Maybe you are machine now. A noisy one." Kale groaned. "Wonderful. I always dreamed of being compared to a malfunctioning blender." The mood stayed light, but beneath it Kale sensed something heavier. The way the women glanced at each other when they thought he wasn't looking, the way their laughter dimmed just a little whenever Silverhair spoke of the station's will, it all hinted at truths they weren't sharing. Still, humor carried the moment. When Kale tried to leave the chamber, one of the younger girls blocked his path and solemnly handed him a towel. "For when you break more things," she said. Kale blinked. "A towel? That's my grand prize?" She grinned. "Emergency towel strike. Tradition now." The whole group laughed again, and Kale couldn't help it, he laughed too. Somewhere between humiliation and absurdity, he realized he wasn't just the outsider anymore. He was becoming part of their strange, resonant world, whether he liked it or not. Kale had assumed, naively, that after being tested like a human tuning fork, he'd be sent back to his workshop and told never to wander again. Instead, the alien women kept him close, as though he were now a mascot or, worse, a project. He found himself ushered into their gatherings, their rehearsals, their late-night meals where food pulsed with faint light and fizzed against his tongue like it was judging him for being unrefined. It was during one of these meals that he finally pushed for answers. "So," he said, chewing something that tasted like pepper and battery acid, "why me? Why would the station pick the one human who can't find his way to a bathroom without starting an incident?" Copperhair leaned over the table with a mischievous grin. "Because you make good stories. Much more fun than serious chosen ones." Kale groaned. "That's it? I'm comedy relief for a sentient space station." Silverhair's voice cut through the laughter, calm and steady. "The station does not play with fate. When it guides, it is deliberate." Her certainty quieted the others for a moment. Kale looked around at the long ears twitching in thoughtful silence and muttered, "Deliberate, huh? My whole life feels like an accident with good timing." The conversation shifted when one of the younger girls pulled out a device, a cube that unfolded into layers of projected star maps. They leaned over it, ears quivering, pointing out routes and anomalies Kale didn't recognize. When he asked, they exchanged glances until Silverhair finally explained. "There are fractures in the resonance field," she said. "Not caused by us. Something foreign disrupts it. The station guided you because you feel the dissonance. Perhaps you can find what we cannot." Kale nearly choked on his glowing food. "Wait, you want me to help? I'm not some resonance whisperer. I fix coolant leaks and recalibrate engines with wrenches. My idea of saving the day is not setting myself on fire." "Then do not set yourself on fire," Silverhair replied dryly. The table burst into laughter again, and Kale buried his face in his hands. Despite his protests, they dragged him into their investigation. He was given a slender band of metal to wear on his wrist, one that vibrated faintly when the resonance around him shifted. The first time it buzzed, Kale yelped and flailed so hard he almost slapped it off. The girls laughed until they couldn't breathe. As they followed the subtle disruptions, Kale noticed how the station itself seemed to react differently around him. Lights brightened when he passed. Doors that usually stuck open glided smoothly. Once, when he muttered about needing coffee, a nearby dispenser hissed to life unprompted and spat out a steaming cup, though it promptly overflowed and soaked his boots. "See?" Copperhair said, laughing as Kale hopped to avoid the mess. "Even machines want to please you." "Yeah," Kale grumbled. "They just have lousy aim." But slowly, reluctantly, he admitted something was happening. The dissonance in the resonance field, it made his bones itch, his teeth hum, his head feel like someone was tuning an invisible violin string. He could sense it before the wristband did. The first major incident came when they tracked one of the fractures to the docking bays. A cargo ship hummed with the wrong vibration, like an instrument just slightly out of tune. Kale approached it cautiously, muttering, "Please don't explode, please don't explode," as he laid a hand on the hull. The resonance thrummed through him, too sharp, too jagged. He jerked back. "That's not right. Feels like nails on a chalkboard." If chalkboard screamed. Silverhair's ears tilted. Foreign technology. Hidden. The station was correct to send us here. The others spread out, examining the cargo ship, while Kale stood awkwardly with his palms still tingling. He tried to be useful, only to trip over a loading cable and land face first in a container of glowing fruit. When he sat up, fruit juice dripping down his uniform, Copperhair nearly collapsed laughing. "Chosen one," she gasped between laughs. "Defeated by produce." "Wonderful," Kale said, peeling sticky fruit off his sleeve. "I'll save the galaxy with slapstick." The humor kept the tension from overwhelming him, but underneath the laughter he saw how serious Silverhair had become. The foreign resonance wasn't a joke to her, and the way she kept studying him made Kale uneasy. Later, as they left the bay, she walked beside him. "You feel it more strongly than us," she said quietly. "That makes you valuable." Kale glanced at her. "Valuable, huh? To who?" "You." "The station?" "Because to me, it feels like I'm about 3 accidents away from disaster." Her lips twitched, almost a smile. "Then do not make 3 accidents." "Easier said than done," Kale muttered. "My whole life is accidents." Still, he followed her and the others deeper into the mystery. And though he tried to laugh it off, he couldn't shake the thought that the station hadn't chosen him by mistake. Something bigger waited, and somehow, he was tangled in it whether he liked it or not. The alarms began with a low pulse, then rose until the whole station seemed to throb. Kale stumbled out of his bunk, half asleep, and found the corridor already crowded with the long-eared women. Silverhair stood at the front, her ears rigid, her expression sharp. "The resonance fields are collapsing," she said. "The foreign dissonance spreads. If we do not restore balance, the station will fracture." Kale rubbed his eyes. "Fracture? As in, crack in half?" "Because I was really hoping to make it through the day without being space debris." "It is worse," she said. "The collapse will ripple into the fleet. Entire sectors may be silenced." The girls were already moving, rushing toward the resonance chamber. Kale jogged to keep up, muttering about how he should have stayed in engineering where explosions at least made sense. When they entered the chamber, the floating spheres screamed with chaotic sound. The harmony that once soothed now stabbed like jagged glass. Kale winced, covering his ears. The long-eared women looked pained too, their sense